Now, SVP and Russillo on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNRadio.com.
Hey, it's SVP and Russillo. Appreciate you checking out the podcast. Gary Williams, a Naismith Hall of Famer, on what it was like to try to beat Dean Smith. Terry Stotts of the Portland Trailblazers, apparently a big fan of the show, although he accused us of not watching his team, which was offensive to both of us. A fun visit with him. The topics were all over the map. We have a college player that won't stop poking people in the eye, an owner that writes a ridiculous email, Boogie Cousins, who Ryen is finished with, LeBron, who tweets creating a story, then tweets again saying don't make up stories when he's the guy that made it up in the first place, and a very disturbing charge that's dropped against an NFL player. So we're all over the map, but somehow it all makes kind of a fun show and podcast. Which starts now.
SVP and Russillo.
The NFL's offseason, what are we, a week into this?
Yeah, and since the new year, we've had 8 arrests. I mean, it is like we need multiple heats to keep up. It's not just 8 guys with a 100-yard dash. Like, we've just gotten started with this thing, and that leads us into the news today. So let's actually do a little bit more on the offseason later, but the breaking news is Gred Hardy right now with the charges dismissed this morning.
And think about the way this season played out. The fact that Carolina made the playoffs, it in a way, it's masks the fact that early on, this really good defense lost one of its best players in Gred Hardy, and they lost him because there was this really sinister-sounding stuff that he was accused of doing, charged with, and the climate at that stage of the offseason with Rice and Peterson, and then Hardy was, if you were accused of something, you're gone.
No. Right, and that's what everybody wanted. Because it wasn't just going to be 2 games. That was the climate at the time. And if you go back and read the charges against him, they're brutal.
Really
they're
bad.
So specific that I feel like, just my opinion today, is that Gred Hardy got away with this. Throwing her onto a pile of guns. And here's the thing, and I don't want to laugh because it's a horrible topic, but you have to kind of go, are you kidding me, and how this timeline plays out? So he's suspended. He's put on the inactive list, which means you still get paid. So he was hooked up with a $13 million contract this year. He got all that money. So the public, in their thirst for vengeance, like, we can't have these guys playing if charged, not convicted if they're charged. And that's a whole other debate. So Hardy's only charged, but Ray Rice, the Peterson thing, Hardy, it's all connected. Like, these guys can't be out there. But he still collects all of this money. So today, the woman he was in charge of assaulting doesn't show up to testify, his ex-girlfriend, and she apparently, based on what the prosecution said, was paid off, most likely by the money that he made by not even playing this year. And he'll be a free agent in March and ready to sign with anybody.
And this is the conundrum that you face. Court of public opinion says we can't have him playing because he's charged, but just like Peterson got paid, Hardy gets paid, and then in theory, the cash that you get while getting essentially a paid vacation, you can then use to pay off somebody in a civil settlement, and then it all goes away. So what you've got is you've got the Charlotte DA saying, quote, to prosecute domestic violence cases, we encourage domestic violence victims to not only report domestic violence, but to participate in every level of the prosecution. And that leads us down to a place where you have to tread very lightly, because again, I read the charges, you read the charges, you look at them and you think, man, this isn't a vague painting of a picture. It's vivid details of something that, if it truly happens, horrendous.
Right, and she stayed part of the process much further along until all of a sudden she's supposed to be there. And this is, again, Nicole Holder, the ex-girlfriend of Hardy, and then she's a no-show, charges dismissed, and then, as you mentioned, the DA saying she got paid off. Now, I know everybody, as they start to digest this a little bit more, because I don't think people have really processed what's happened here, you're going to go, well, that's ridiculous. He can't get that money. And you go, well, look, what else is the NFL supposed to do? Like, they can't, if you're just charged with something, you can't then, like, you could argue getting banned for the season with just a charge is the wrong thing.
Right, well, you can't just invent a new justice system.
Right. Like, now we want all your money, too, because there's a really good chance he got away with this. And you know what? He's so good, and he's still so young, the next team can pay him. He will get signed by another team, and they can go, all right, he's learned from his mistakes and being around the right people at the right time. And the same playbook stuff that we hear all the time. And I'm not telling you he should never, ever play football again. But if you just think about how the three things are connected, suspended, but suspended with pay, charges dismissed, she may have gotten paid, doesn't show up today.
And then there's the possibility that the whole, I mean, and I'm not accusing her of this, but you have to be careful because if people see paydays, who knows? Could you invent something and then
Possibly, yes, of course.
That possibility exists as well. Field Yates, ESPN NFL Insider, on the difficult map this provides to the league.
If the NFL treats this as if this incident never took place because there were no charges, the charges have been dropped, what kind of message are you sending? At the same time, the NFL personal conduct policy is specifically tied to the outcome of court cases. If you're found guilty of certain charges, you face X level of punishment. There isn't a lot of precedent here. Obviously, this is the first year of the personal conduct policy, and no two cases are the same. It's going to be a very tricky one for the NFL to manage over the next handful of months.
It's SVP and Russillo. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. You can test drive Snapshot to see how much you can save. Before switching to Progressive, visit progressive.com/snapshot. A week ago today, we were talking about the Super Bowl. A week after, we're talking about ready, set, go. It's the off season, and it's, as you say, off to a busy start.
If you look at this study, and there's been some awesome stuff that I've looked at here, there's an arrest database that the school in San Diego did, and you can look at this 15-year stretch. And I remember when I first started doing radio here, it was right when the offseason seemed to be just a joke. I mean, every day, if there were 10 stories up on the front page of ESPN.com, it felt like 5 were NFL players in some legal trouble. And at this point, it's pretty clear that the NFL, I know it has far more players to get arrested because of the pool of actual players, but it just seems like all you're doing is talking about these guys. And as much as you keep trying to change the policy, and the arrests did dip down, okay, they did go down, and they're still lower than the national average for every different thing you can do wrong than you have with the rest of the regular population. But it proves, like, none of this really matters. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. You had a record Super Bowl a week ago. We can be outraged, and we can freak out with the Ray Rice stuff, and we can do all these things, but it ultimately never matters because we still crave the product so much.
When do we get to talk about the guy with his shovel?
Oh, my man, boy, that has almost nothing to do with it, but he was one of the guys that was arrested twice. And, we talked a couple weeks ago about having a bad night. I loved Boyette because he was a duck. He was good. But he got cut from the Colts, and then later he was on the Broncos practice squad, and he was arrested on harassment and theft after he said he was assaulted a cab driver, stole a shovel from a construction site, and then tried to bury himself in a pile of mulch by getting away from the police. Those were the accusations. The Broncos have had 45 players arrested in the 15-year of this study based on this database.
I don't endorse the idea of assaulting cab drivers, obviously, or getting arrested at all. I do, however, applaud in the midst of chaos, while on the lam from the law, to think, if I could just get me a shovel and find some mulch, I bet I could lie down and be real still. How do you, in the middle of being?
I'm actually impressed.
That's what I'm saying.
You can breathe in the mulch.
Right. Why? Because it's just not that dense.
Yeah, right.
Density.
I mean, it's the way it's constructed, you can probably breathe, maybe even get a sight line or two.
I feel itchy suggesting that I would applaud anyone, but the man found a shovel and was thinking shovel plus mulch equals freedom. I mean, that's.
And the cops are just messing with him too with a stolen shovel charge. I was using it to hide, but now you guys are just making up stuff. So, and unfortunately, I have not looked to see where these cases are, but if you go through this database, you can see every single NFL arrest. This is from this is a newspaper, actually, out in San Diego. But this stuff's fascinating. But, yeah, we're off to a quick start. A lot of dudes getting busted for stuff. DeQuell Jackson, pizza guy. I don't know what day. Iggy Azalea's having her problems with pizza people, too.
What's up with that?
Apparently, the driver gave out her cell phone, and then some people started texting Iggy Azalea, being like, is this really you? She's the realist. Did she win anything last night? No, Kanye wins with easily the worst. No, excuse me, not Kanye. Kendrick Lamar wins best rap song with easily the worst rap song he's done. Right. I mean, I can't stand that song that he has, and I love him. That's just a deal where everyone's they're so in love with the first thing he did. He could do anything. They could do, like we said, banjo yodeling next. Hey, did you hear Kendrick's banjo yodeling? Yeah, it's not awesome. A category. Oh, should be. He'll win it.
SVP and Russillo.
Wherever you are in the country, it can't be as miserable as it is here. It snows every day. There's just feet of snow. And I like snow, but I've had enough. How about the Cleveland situation? There you go. What do they won? 13 or 14?
Yep.
They're good.
3 seed in the East.
A lot of dopes that punted on them. What's up? Starting to wonder. Hey, how about my Wizards? They beat Brooklyn, though. Things seem to be about as good as you could hope they'd be. Except LeBron tweets out about, where is it? Fit out.
I have it right here. By the way,
stop trying to find. Go ahead.
Cleveland 5 seed right now, so they were there for their half game.
Stop trying a way to find a way to fit out and just fit in. Be a part of something special. Just my thoughts.
So James was asked about that and said, well, what are you doing? You talking about Kevin Love? And he goes, no, not at all. Although Kevin Love said this exact quote before the season started. Love said, quote, I had a talk with the guys on the plane ride over to Brazil, also at different practices off the floor, and they told me to fit out, just be myself. So he used Love terminology in his own tweet. LeBron said, you guys are always trying to figure something else out, Da Vinci Code references. And then, pretty much soon after, LeBron said, quote, it's not a coincidence, man. So confirming, yes, I was doing it a way to motivate Kevin Love, who had a great game yesterday, albeit against the Lakers, 32 points, 7-8 from 3. He's had almost every game. It's like 5 points, benched in the fourth, and then 25. Then he went off yesterday. But now LeBron, we wake up today, and he's mad again about it? I can't figure this one out.
Well, first of all, Love, after the tweets or whatever, and then playing well yesterday, he said this about their team.
When we're clicking on all cylinders, we're going to be tough to beat, and we enjoy being around each other off the floor as well. I think that helps. We have tremendous respect for one another, and we know that we have a chance to build something special here. So that is something we're going to keep fighting towards, and I thought, especially on our home floor, it's great to have that advantage.
Okay, so fit out, fit in. Yeah, it was about Love. Then we're coming together as a team.
So we're good with that. It's clearly about Love. He
Yep.
references Love. He quotes Love and then admits it after he was upset that people were assuming anything.
LeBron today. I like you guys a lot, and then parentheses media, but don't try and make a story because it looks good. If you have a problem with a teammate, or if I have a problem with a teammate or anyone, I'll say to their face and not over social media, that's corny and whack. So good try again, my friends, in parentheses media. I still love you guys. So, what?
He's wrong. He's completely wrong here. You're the one who called him out. You're the one that used social media. We only went by what you said. And then you denied it and then admitted it. And then it's our fault? Like, there's no easier card to play than the athlete. Because let's face it, most of you guys listening to us right now, you're not that impressed. All right? You probably think you could just let me watch games and go chop it up and turn a microphone on. I get it. I'm reminded consistently from all my friends how not impressed they are with what I do, okay? But whenever you're kind of feeling like, wait a minute, maybe I did something wrong, you can just turn and blame all of us, and all the fans are like, yeah, get off his back, media, parentheses.
Yeah. This whole season for Love is a bit of it's an eye-opener for me. I bought into all of the years in Minnesota where he got his. And if I'm being honest with myself, you realize in retrospect that when you're really not asked to win, that you can go out and you can accumulate. And his skill set changed. He went from being a big kid that threw outlet passes and rebounded at UCLA to a fit, lean, three-point shooting guy that seemed dangerous. And then you realize that they're trying to assimilate it within this group. And there have been times that he's been invisible. And who's he going to guard? And what happens to him in the offensive end? And Love talked about yesterday how happy he was to just be, like, included or whatever else. I never dreamt that he would constantly be this, feel like a piece of the puzzle that just didn't fit within the entire picture of what they were trying to be.
Yeah, I thought at the very least he's a guy that still could give you post touches, could stretch you defensively.
You got to go to the post
more.
to get touches, though, don't you?
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're trying to do that more and more. But if you just think about his skills, I never thought he was a top 5 player in the league. That's what people kept saying over and over and over again. And I know we're going to talk about DeMarcus Cousins a little bit later, but I think Cousins is another example. Like, I don't want to hear about how sick his numbers are despite the game winner last night against Phoenix, because there is an element of your playing style that can lead to wins or be numbers guys that don't really help teams win. And that's kind of what Love was in Minnesota. And you're right, we're finding that out more and more. But it's still been a far rougher transition based on what he can still bring to the game. And maybe it gets a lot better here during this stretch, and they've played better. And they're a more functional team with kind of role pieces now than Dion Waiters deciding to come in and jack it up whenever he can.
He does like to get his shots, does Mr. Waiters. It's SVP and Russillo, ESPN Radio. Just big picture. Is Love, he says, quote, I'm a Cleveland Cavalier. Is that the presumption around the league, that his long-term future remains there?
The way I understood the deal and how this all went down was that there were as close to assurances as you can get. You know, you're not going to do anything illegal, not after what the Timberwolves got busted for doing on that Joe Smith contract where they ended up losing 4 first-round picks.
Yeah,
but that if we're trading pieces, specifically number 1 pick, specifically Andrew Wiggins, who looks like he's going to be a stud, then we got to know that this is not a one-year deal. And at the time, Love's thinking, why would I want to go anywhere else, right? I'm playing with the best player in the league, LeBron, or I get a chance after 6 years in Minnesota. Let's get some wins. But until it's signed, like, you don't know. And nobody seems to want to believe this, but I believe that Cleveland has flirted with some teams going, hey, what if we maybe could move him for this guy over there? No other teams really want to touch it because the guy's a free agent.
He made assurances to them, but if they look around and go, hey, we'd be happy, maybe we want to part with you. It's just interesting to read these stories about LeBron saying, I drew up some sets for him in a timeout because he had a hot hand. You're just trying to make him feel better, and then you tweeted this stuff, and then you go on social media and like you're mad at you did it. You did it. Fit out, fit in.
You directed your tweet at your teammate, quoting what he said before the season started, denied it, admitted it, but it's our fault. I mean, come on, dude. I mean, I love your game. All right? This is one of those things where I always say, let's not blame a guy for 3% of the things you don't like when you like the rest of it.
What if it's 4%?
Man, it's gone up to 4. Because this is so dumb. Like, come on, LeBron, you're smarter than that.
Yeah, I think sometimes you can't help yourself where you feel the only way to put out the fire that you created with the medium is to go back to that medium and then act like it wasn't you that lit the match to begin with.
I'm going to unfollow him.
I don't follow him to begin with.
That's it. You go to 18.756124
million. All right,
I'm not kidding. That's what it is.
Oh, that's a lot of dudes.
SVP and Russillo.
Gary, I think back to when you came to Maryland, and back then Carolina was still the game more so than Duke. That felt like the Duke thing became the game later on. Carolina represented such a big deal from lefty on through to your years. When you think about Dean Smith, what first comes to mind?
Well, I think all the things that we've all heard about what a great humanitarian he was are really true. I think those things, but you have to set those things aside for the type of man he is. And then when you look at the coaching thing, he was a great competitor. I mean, he competed right there with Mike Krzyzewski, anybody else you want to talk about. And, Dean wasn't above saying something to one of your players, during the game. He was really amazing with the officials. He gave it to John Wooden, where he sat there on the bench and everybody thought, what a gentleman. And meanwhile, he'd jab him. And Dean was pretty sarcastic. He was pretty funny, like at the spring meetings and all those things. And
right.
He'd get him pretty good. There's one quick story with Lenny Wirtz, the all-time great official in the ACC. I think he worked like 35, 40 years in the ACC. We were playing at Carolina. My first year was 89-90 in the Dean Dome, and the play was in front of Carolina's bench. Lenny blows his whistle, and he calls a technical foul on Dean Smith. We shoot the free throws. The play comes down our end. There's a foul. So Lenny Wirtz is now in front of my bench. And I had known Lenny. He had ref games when I played at Maryland. I said, Lenny, what's the deal? What was the technical for? I didn't see him jump up. He said, you know what he did? And he used some other words in there, but he said, do you know what he did? He told me that his record with him was, say, 65-40. And Lenny said, yeah, so what? And Dean said, well, that's the worst record of any official that's worked a lot of my games. Two things on that. I mean, that's Dean knowing the record of an official with him. I mean, you had your favorite referees, guys you didn't like, things like that, but you didn't know records with officials. And, Dean could really jab. When Dean jabbed, he got you pretty good.
Gary, if you look at Dean as an innovator, is there anything that he did in changing basketball where you think to yourself, I wish I had thought of that?
Well, I think I got one thing from him when this was back in the 60s, he was an assistant with Frank McGuire. Frank McGuire was all 2-3 basically. And his first couple of years there where he didn't win, he played majority of 2-3. And then, I think it was 65, he came out with a run and jump press. And it was really innovative then. And, I had to play against it. And, I just knew how tough it was to go against it and that type of thing. So I got that. But I think the big thing with Dean, he was always looking for a way to gain an edge in a very positive way. In other words, within the rules. And the pressure was one. Not many teams were pressing back then. The idea of the four corners to take advantage, and I think part of Dean's reasoning on that, Dean hated the idea that teams could hold the ball. So when he got filled forward or whatever, the four corners, I think he did it, to win games, but he also did it to point out how important a clock was to the future of college basketball. And then, of course, substituting 5 at a time, the blue team would go in. That was, he had 5 good players on the bench, so that was one reason he could do it, but it was very innovative. And, he did so many things that you go to play in Chapel Hill, and I think we played against each other 9 years, so that's 9 times. He had the same chewing gum for the visiting team every game, exactly this much double mint, this much, spearmint, that type of thing. And we used to laugh at it, but he was precise. He was not going to let you gain an edge by anything in terms of preparation for a game.
Naismith Hall of Famer Gary Williams, the three all-time leaders in ACC wins, Mike Krzyzewski, Dean Smith, and Gary Williams. And Gary, as a fan, I know the games I immediately think of when you went head-to-head with him. Is there a night, a specific game that above all the others stands out for you?
Well, I think there was really a big game for us that kind of put us over the top. We weren't very good till we got Joe Smith and Keith Booth playing for us. And in 1995, it was in February, we were able to beat Carolina at home, but never number 1 in the country. And I think not just locally there in Maryland or the ACC, but that kind of established the fact that we could play on a national basis. And we had won 3 games in the ACC not too long before that, and that enabled us to get to the Sweet 16. But it gave the school confidence. It gave fans like yourself, it gave them confidence that we could do it, because that was the biggest thing when I got there in '89. We had to somehow regain the confidence that Lefty had built up in the Maryland basketball program, and that game just kind of put us over the top. And part of that always is the respect that not just me, but our fans, as much as they might have hated him in a way, how much they respected Dean Smith in North Carolina because they were so consistently good.
Gary, you've done both, and when I'm talking about being a leader and being a father figure and also winning a title, it's something Dean's done. What's more satisfying as a head coach?
Well, what's really satisfying is having players, say when they're 30, 35 years old, come back and tell you how much they appreciated what you did for them while they were in school, because sometimes it's not always easy for anybody, whether it's Dean Smith or somebody else, because you have to be a tough guy sometimes as a coach. Players, anybody 18 to 22 years old, doesn't always want to do the right thing, and so you use your experience to try to tell them the right things to do. And then if they don't cooperate, you have to find a way to get them to do it. And sometimes it's not easy. And I think Dean's players, to a man, all felt that Dean gave each one of them the best effort he could to try to get them in the right path, because you always hear about Billy Cunningham or Michael Jordan, people like that played for Carolina. But there's so many guys that played for Dean that really appreciate what he did. And I think part of it is he treated the 13th man just like he treated Michael Jordan. And, that's something players really appreciate. They don't like favoritism at all. They just want it to be fair. If they're not good enough to play, they might not like it, but they figure it out. And that's what they want out of the coach.
Hall of Famer Gary Williams, final thought. Initially, young Gary Williams taking on Dean Smith in the ACC. Level of intimidation at all when it came to looking down the bench and seeing him?
Yeah, I learned that a long time ago, Scott, not to look down the bench. I went from American U to the Big East, and they had Thompson, Massimino, Boeheim, Carlissimo, Patino, all those guys were there when I got to BC. So I quickly learned to just worry about your own team and not do anything. But it was a thrill. The first time to walk out in the court against, by then he was a legend, to walk out in the court against Dean Smith was really special. It's something I'll never forget. And, that first year, we were going through so many things at Maryland in '89-90 that it was great to just get on the court, and then to get on the court and compete against Dean Smith was really special.
Gary, always appreciate the time and perspective. Thanks for stopping in.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
SVP and Russillo.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
SVP and Russillo.
Boogie Cousins leads us off. A lot happening here. There's a lot in play. I did a one big thing earlier this year. Might have been first week of the season. I was buying into that whole Team USA, how much he benefited from being around these guys, professionals. His talent, his skill set is evident. All you got to do is watch him play. But there's word on the street is that the Sacramento Kings front office, do you think they realized that running Malone was a mistake?
I hope they do, because they were 11-13, I believe, and now they're on coach number 4. And here's the thing: to run Mike Malone, fine. You don't like the direction. There's stuff that we don't understand, but to do it for Tyrone Corbin is laughable. I'm sorry. I mean, Corbin's just not a head coach.
Nope. And so now George Karl is evidently in play, and it's evident that George would like to coach, and he's done it, and he's done it well. And the word on the street is that, and this is from Wojnarowski and others, that the sticking point isn't about years and money. It's about whether or not Boogie Cousins' camp is going to sign off on this. I understand he's your franchise guy, but good luck with your franchise if that's the guy calling the shots.
He's a great player as far as his talent. The numbers are off the charts again this year. He's 24-12. His efficiency is always about the top 10. The talent's there. But, I watched last night when he hit the game winner against Phoenix, which, by the way, is now the 4th buzzer beater that's beaten Phoenix all season long, which matches Utah for an entire season from 8 years ago. So that's the most in 8 years, and they still have 20-plus games to go. It was a great shot, but I watched that game, and I watched DeMarcus, and that's what I do whenever I watch Kings games. I go, where's DeMarcus now? Where's DeMarcus? He had a travel where he completely traveled, freaked out, argued the call, almost got a second technical in a tie game with a couple minutes left, and then in a petulant move by Cousins, throws the ball down on the ground around the official. The official completely hooked him up, gave him a delay game. Next possession down, he's still mad about that call, runs into Isaiah Thomas on purpose, tries to get a charge. It's not even close. It was a block. He gets called for that. He's on the ground. So that leads to him not playing defense and closing in on Markieff. He actually had a sick turnaround at the rim that I can't even believe went in, and then he hits the game winner. So if you're just looking at this and listen to his comments from last night, you go, man, poor DeMarcus. Like, I read all these articles and hear it from people, and you listen to the broadcast, and they are so in the bag for DeMarcus because it's their guy, and to be an NBA announcer, you're asked to be a homer, so I get it. And you know where I've stood on this, that when I watch him, I just find him an unenjoyable basketball player to watch play throughout the entire course of the game, despite the huge numbers. But the game winner is not the story. You have to watch all these pieces and wonder why this is a team that basically with DeMarcus loses 7 out of every 10 games they play. I know the rest of the team around him isn't great, but then when I hear this after the game winner where he ran off the court, like, this scares me.
Here's DeMarcus Cousins.
No, I ain't pumped up. I just got a lot on my mind. The favorite thing about it, I just got a question. Now, how you going to stop guys now? How you going to do that?
Do you think it's gossip?
How you going to do that? That's what I want to know. How you going to stop guys? Man, this city done put me through so much. I had to stay loyal to it the whole time. Hey, I just want to know how you going to stop guys playing. God give his hardest battles to strong souls. Marathon continues. I'm out.
So it's God's plan. God's super invested in Sacramento. He's been loyal.
Well, the loyal thing's a joke. I mean, they drafted you. They gave you a max contract when people thought at the time that you weren't invested enough. And we can talk about coaches. It sounds like you've liked one of the first 4 that you've had, and you're about to get your 5th one.
I don't talk to any front office folks. You do. How do they perceive this talent that is undeniable? But
everybody thinks they could fix him.
Is that what people think?
Yeah. It's easy to rip him from afar, but if I was running a team and I had DeMarcus Cousins staring at me to trade, I'd go, maybe. But I honestly don't think I would do it, and I would get criticized for it. Those quotes epitomize watching DeMarcus that he just can't get past. Like, not everybody's out to get you, man. Not everybody's out to get you. People want to help you. When you get everybody has bad calls called on them. And a lot of people complain calls. LeBron, Wade, all the superstars. Kobe, Duncan, Chris Paul, all this stuff. They all complain. But I think they're complaining in the midst of being competitive. And with DeMarcus, I think he thinks it's, like, personal all the time. And to hear this after the fact that, like, I've been loyal and this place has put me through so much stuff. No, they haven't, man. You just hasn't been a good team. And they keep trying to get rid of coaches to help you out. And that's what we're doing again right now.
Who would they want? I mean, that's the thing I can't figure out is what type of guy is it that you think you'd want?
I don't know. I mean, look, the Cal stories are all horror stories that you hear from Kentucky anyway. That, well, look, there was not that he didn't like him. I mean, this always makes it sound like it's personal, and I know all the Kentucky fans because he was there like 3 months are going to get mad at me. But he's just a tough guy to get along with. And you heard this stuff before the draft. You'd interview him. You'd sit down, you'd hear about the teams interviewing him, and you go, man, there's a lot. This guy should have been the number one pick in the draft based on talent alone, okay? That's how special he is. And it's remarkable he can put up these numbers. Imagine if he was super invested all the time, and now because he's mad from game to game, there are these vines where the inbound pass where he's basically like, I'm not going to do anything.
Yep, just doesn't try.
And that's what's so sad because you're really special. You're a special basketball player. But you look at these records, and there's going to be so many people listening to me right now that completely disagree with everything I'm saying, but I watch a lot of Kings games, and I always wonder when it's going to get better. And even in a game winner, there's all these things in the last few minutes where you're going, are you really trying to see if you can get a second technical here? Like, your team needs you.
Speaking of getting personal.
Yeah, your boy.
You most likely have made your family miserable. Alcoholic, maybe? That's from James Dolan to a man that wrote him an email. It's a Knick fan who says he's been a Knick fan since 1952. And can you imagine being an owner of a team and telling someone you made your family miserable? He's bragging about his own sobriety. Maybe it'll help you become a person folks would like to have around. In the meantime, start rooting for the Nets because the Knicks don't want you. This is an email from James Dolan, the owner of the Knicks and the Cablevision CEO, at a mad Knick fan. Now, I just don't know how. I don't know how you could be Dolan and sit down and pen this letter to somebody and reply in the midst of the season that you're having, and to just. I mean, this is just go form letter. Just, hey, we're working on trying to get better, yada, yada. Send him some free tickets. Send him a hat. Something. Anything. No, you call the guy an alcoholic. And to be this tone deaf and this arrogant is so off-putting to me, I can't even summarize it succinctly. I just think it's just unbelievable. I talked about Bashadi earlier and about being like someone that carries himself in a certain way. I can't imagine that a guy like this has zero people around him that can check him. Zero. Not one person to go, hey, man, what are you doing?
No. And apparently the whole thing with the Knicks and covering the games, I mean, it just became a complete disaster there towards the end. And it was a disaster, and it was a toxic place because of him and his decisions and the Isaiah stuff and on and on and on. And now he brings in Phil with a great reputation. All he's doing is just paying for more losses.
Yeah, and what is it, $12 million for him and $5 million for Fisher?
Yeah, that's 17. You still have Steve Mills, who's the GM, who's not really considered. I mean, look, he's not overruling Phil on anything. But I always wonder with this kind of stuff where if you fire at somebody and then you publish what they've responded to you with, does that mean that you're leaving something out and that you did something nasty? Remember the Amari Stoudemire thing years ago where this guy was just wearing him out on Twitter, and then finally Amari just DM'd him, called him something he shouldn't have, and then the guy screen grabs and goes, look what Amari called me. And now Amari's the bad guy. So I do think there are certain times where I look at the person who fires back and go, well, how was he provoked? But according to everything we've said, this Irving Bierman is 73 years old. He's like, I haven't had a drink since I was 18 in high school. He's like, I was trying to be completely professional throughout all of this, unlike him. He was on The Fan. He was on some other radio station. So, it doesn't feel like it's a massive publicity grab. So at this point, Dolan's going to hear from the league.
Well, I mean, Mr. Bierman did say, "I'm utterly embarrassed by your dealings with the Knicks. Sell them." I mean, he's a fan, and he's angry. And if you're Dolan, you might not like the tone, and you might not like having your chest poked by Aaron Bierman or Irving Bierman, I beg your pardon, Old Irv. You don't need Old Irv poking, giving you the what for. But your team's an embarrassment this year, and you're just not on a position, dealing from a position of strength here. You don't have the high ground here.
Right, and if you want to respond and you want to stick up for yourself, okay, fine, you can challenge him a little bit. But then to go alcoholic, maybe
you make your family miserable.
Right? What
are you doing? What are you doing?
I had an open mind about this until I started reading more on it.
I argue with eggs. We've all got our problems.
Yeah, but not publicly anymore. You go right to them, so no one knows how bad of a follow you are anymore.
I don't tweet out stuff specific. People, what are you going to do?
You didn't do any Grammy tweets last night. I was kind of bummed out.
You don't have to. Hey, cool, it's an award show. Let's all. What's the ratio of jokes that what the success rate for jokes? 1 in 20?
Yeah, maybe. I was trying to think of a comedian that I thought was kind of at that level.
Spencer Hall was the winner. He had a tweet about Tom Petty in a tub full of kettle chips doing bong hits out of a bong made out of a mammoth tusk. I thought that was funny. I didn't even know what was going on.
SVP and Russillo.
The problem about the next story is that because I root for the team that was involved in the game, you're not allowed to say anything because since my team got beat, it just turns into, your team got beat, shut up. Maryland didn't lose to Iowa yesterday because Melo Trimble got poked in the eye by Adam Woodbury. They lost because they were behind 22-3 and allowed Iowa to shoot 64% in the game. Iowa played very well. Okay? Moving on. What happened in the game is that Adam Woodbury, a big man for Iowa, pokes Melo Trimble in the eye, and play goes on. Melo falls down to the ground. It goes the other way. Iowa ends up getting a 3 on the other end. Then they look at the tape, and then they call him for a flagrant. In and of itself, it's just one thing that happens. This is the third time that Woodbury has poked a guy in the eye this year. Twice happened in the Wisconsin game, once to Nigel Hayes, the second to Frank Kaminsky. Kaminsky, who's going to be the Big Ten Player of the Year, just looks at the refs as if to say, what are we doing? Dan Dockich famously had a lot to say about that. That left Fran McCaffrey, Iowa coach, mad at him, and it required Dockich to have an extra security detail when he called the game in Iowa City. Is that about where we are?
Yep.
Okay. So after the game, McCaffrey, the Iowa head coach, whose team just won a game that really helps it, big picture, they end up winning by, 15 or 16, whatever the case. Doesn't matter. They win. He's asked about this, the eye-poking incident.
That's 3 times you got somebody in the eye. How does this keep happening?
Next question. Ask an intelligent question. Anybody have a question?
Why is that not an intelligent question?
Because I said so.
Fran's a good dude.
People love him and think he's a great coach.
I did a charity function when he was at Siena. Great guy. This is ridiculous. All right? It's not an intelligent question. If you watch that video and Melo Trimble is coming down, I realize basketball is a fast game and in real time you're trying to play defense. He's neither shooting and he's not trying to grab the ball. He just jabs him with his giant hand right in his face, right in his eye. And it's the third time that it's happened. I mean, the ball's at waist level. He's not shooting. He's not passing. He gets poked right in the eye. And again, this one incident is just this one. But because it's now happened 3 times, I don't know what I'm suggesting other than for Fran, that's just can't be the play after the game.
Terrible look by Fran. And it's disappointing only because I don't know him that well. You know him better than I do, but I know Gottlieb swears by him. Great hire. Guy really knows hoops. Some of these guys get hired because they look the part, and then you start watching him and you go, wow, he has no idea what's going on out there. Fran's not that guy. But he has no idea. I mean, this kid is out of control. Like, clean it up. This is one of those segments where you wish you could swear. Like, stop being such a bleep. Stop poking people in the eye. Like, figure it out. This is 3 times. If it happened once with Trimble, I go, okay, you know what? Maybe he's uncoordinated. But when you really think about guys that play basketball and how coordinated, I don't want to hear this from anybody. you know what you're trying to do and what's a mistake. And the Kaminsky one is perfect because Kaminsky's so like, what are you doing? Don't poke me in the eye. Play defense or don't, but don't do this. So you can talk about protecting your guy or not wanting to give it to the media and praise the next guy who goes, why is that not an intelligent question?
Yeah, I don't understand what isn't intelligent about it. I mean, there's a picture, a screenshot that's on the big lead where the ball's at waist level and Woodbury's hand is right. It just pokes him square in the eye. And I'm big back in the day on all the tricks. The guy shoots, you tap him on the elbow. If you can tap him on the elbow, tap him on the elbow. If you can tap him in the chest, even better. You can tap him in the stomach, even better, because it makes you kind of flinch a little bit on a jump shot. If the referee doesn't see it, it's all fair in love and war out there. I understand that. But you start jabbing dudes in the eye, and it can get – I mean, Trimble ends up on the bench, and you can see it's obviously effective. You ever get jabbed in the eye? It hurts like hell.
It's the worst in your eye. It feels like something's still in there, and it's all watered up, and you don't want to be out there playing basketball. But here's the thing of Iowa fans, who are great, okay? Iowa people are awesome. But don't even bother with the, like, we don't get it thing, because you don't. Like, you're on your own on this one. And unfortunately, Fran, in this spot, their head coach McCaffrey, like, they'll look to him. Fans take their leadership cues from the coach, and they'll go, see, yeah, that is stupid. Like, lay off our guy. Stop poking people in the eyes. It's pretty simple. What a weird show today.
Yeah, what he said. Fran's a good dude, but this is 3. This is 3. And you're right. They'll take their cues from him, and they'll say it's stupid.
I really want Russillo to start playing pickup hoops, and then this happens to him.
No, but, like, what a weird show. The Gred Hardy thing, case dismissed. What's going on? LeBron's tweets, it's our fault. I just feel like Monday's been and then DeMarcus, the persecuted DeMarcus Cousins, who everybody's been out to get him except for the organization that max contracted him and is now looking for their 5th coach that he may or may not like.
And outsider Mike, who's not going to be in tomorrow because it's snowing today.
It's like such a euphoric feeling. It's like a drug.
And guys getting poked in the eye, and good coaches saying, and it's not a good question.
SVP and Russillo.
Terry Stotts of the Portland Trailblazers join us via the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Coach, thanks for taking the time to visit with Ryan and I today. I hate to take a snapshot of a 1 or 2 game window and try to turn it into something bigger because you play so many, but you had Dallas down, you had a rough 4th quarter and you lose, and you get a chance the very next night against Houston to see how you respond, how you bounce back, and you do so with a victory. In a small window, how significant is that bounce back last night by your guys?
I thought it was significant because obviously, we blew the game in Dallas. We had an 11-point lead with 2 minutes to go, and that was a game we should have won, and we didn't give Dallas credit. But you never know how a team is going to bounce back after what arguably is the worst loss we had since I've been in Portland. And I will say this about my team and our players, that they've been resilient since I got to Portland. Damien and L.A. and Nick and Wes in particular are all very very hard-nosed competitors. And the way they bounced back didn't surprise me, but you always are a little concerned after a loss like that.
And look, the neighborhood you live in, if you feel sorry for yourself, the next night you're going to get dump trucked. But what's it like to coach in the Western Conference where it feels like basically every game you better be good or you're going to get run?
Well, you got to be prepared. And, the one thing I'll say is that I think coaches and players alike know that you have to bring it every night against teams that are in the playoff race and against teams that aren't in the playoff race, because every game matters. I mean, you got 10 teams that are right there in the playoff hunt and with a lot of games to go. So I really think it brings out the best of everybody, or at least it should.
Coach, LaMarcus Aldridge goes from thumb ligament, could be out an extensive amount of time, could completely change the second half of the season to, you know what, I'm fine, I'm good to go, and he's 23-11 just in this month. How did that change that quickly?
Well, first of all, you got to give a lot of credit to LaMarcus for making the decision. He had a choice one way or the other, and I think he was looking at the season, get it fixed, and come back strong for March and April. But we lost a couple tough games at Phoenix, and then lost one here at home to Boston. And I think he knows that we could have a special season. And his thumb started feeling better, and he could always still opt to have the surgery if he needed it, but he wanted to win. He wanted to do it for the team, and he knew how important he was to that. So I was most pleased that not only did he choose to come back, but how well he's played and the mentality that he's had. I mean, he's been aggressive. He hasn't shied away from contact. Arguably, he's playing some of his best basketball since he came back from that injury.
I'm with you. I can't believe I expected to see a different guy, and you turn it back on and you go, nope, he's still hitting every shot and still getting huge boards. Were you surprised that he did it, knowing he could be a free agent at the end of the year?
I don't know if that factored into it or not. That was his decision, and I'll say this about LA: he is a competitor, and he wants to win. And like I said, we've gotten better every year, and I think we hold ourselves to some expectations this season, and he's a big part of it. So, you'd have to ask him. That was never brought up. I'm sure maybe between him and his agent, but that was never part of the discussion. But every player has to do what's in the best interest of himself, his career, and fortunately, it works out for the team as well.
Terry Stotts, our guest, the Portland Trailblazers head coach. Is it almost a bummer for you that Damian Lillard made it to the All-Star game? Because if he was furious the whole second half, he was going to try to kill everybody in the West.
Well, obviously we're biased, and I'm glad he made it, and we thought he deserved to make it on the first and the second ballot. But, it is what it is, and he's earned it. I'm sure he'll enjoy New York, and with the extended All-Star break, I don't think it'll be too fatiguing on him. He's not doing all the extra competition, so I'm really happy for him, and like I said, I think he's deserving.
And I'm only half kidding when I ask you that question that way, because Ryan and I, Terry, have gone through this, and you try to figure out, like, if you list them, man, that position's so loaded right now. I'm just curious how you've seen him in a short window of time change from, being the guy from Weber State that, hey, he might be something, to where he is right now, where night in and night out, man, he's a problem for anybody who's trying to stop him.
Well, he's been, he's been amazing from day one. He came in, and had high expectations for himself. Obviously, we thought he was a good player, but he exceeded any of the expectations we had for him as a rookie. But he just blasted through everything. People waited for him to hit the rookie wall. He ends up getting Rookie of the Year, makes the All-Star team, makes All-Pro. I mean, just every step along the way, he has proven people wrong, and he expects that of himself. So I don't know necessarily if any of us can be surprised at what he does anymore, because he's done it now for 2.5 years and continues to get better.
Terry, your team last year had incredible health. 4 of the 5 starters started 82 games. LaMarcus missed just over 10. And then you look at the bench and go, you really need – there's some talented guys here, but you need them to step up a little bit. Have you gotten more out of your bench? Have you gotten enough or seen enough improvement from some of the younger players you've had on the roster now for a couple of years?
Yeah, there's been improvement, and I know you guys don't get a chance to watch us play all the time, but I think throughout the course of the season, Steve Blake and Chris Kaman have been kind of the staples off the bench every night, being there for us. And then throughout the season, whether it's been C.J. McCollum or Thomas Robinson or Myers Leonard or Will Barton, Alan Crabb started a few games. We've had people come in and contribute. Darrell Wright who started every game for L.A. last season when L.A. was out. So we've had people come in, and, I think without just looking at stats, with the injuries that we've had to Joel Freeland and Robin Lopez and L.A. and Nick Batum's been ailing all season, we wouldn't have the record or the success we've had this year without our bench.
Is there a team that you don't think you match up well with in the West?
No, that's a trick question.
I tried. Well, you kind of take a you don't get to catch the games all the time. You know what you guys are talking to here.
I tell you what, I won't necessarily answer that question, but I'll say this: I don't know if seedings matter in the West, because I think 1 through 10 right now, I don't know anybody who would choose anybody to play. It's that tough. And, I don't know if necessarily matching up better or worse against another team. I just know that there are 10 teams that are all capable of winning a first-round series.
Ryan was nice enough not to correct you. I'm going to. Just like you let us keep you company during the daytimes, League Pass is a great thing. We spend our late nights watching the Blazers play. So we're watching. I promise.
Well, I forget you got a late radio show. You don't have to get up early to do your job.
That's true. That's true.
I I know you're a golf guy, but I know Ryan's a big-time NBA guy, so it doesn't surprise me he's watching the game.
Honestly, it was a nice way to ask you if McCollum and Myers-Leonard have been good enough this year. I mean, I realize that Blake and Kamen are out there, but I just want to see more from those guys. I was high on them both before the draft. I don't want to look dumb.
Well, if last night both those guys had a very good game, and CJ's coming off 2 good games where he had double-figure scoring in both games. Myers is really coming into his own, understanding the game. He's shooting about 50% from threes. He's been rebounding the ball better. He's played significant minutes down the stretch of big games. So, it just takes a while for the young guys to come along, particularly when the starters are pretty set. And last year, as you mentioned, with our health, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for the bench players to even have a chance to develop. And this year, they've gotten better and they've had opportunity.
Terry, appreciate your time, man. We'll talk again, all right?
Hey, I'm a big fan of your show. Thanks a lot.
SVP and Russillo.